Christmas is coming, and I always like to give out Christmas cards. I don't know, it's something I enjoy doing, handing them out to friends and family and just wishing everyone a good day. And making your own Christmas cards is a fun thing to do, and it's a great way to practice your drawing skills. I have here a little Christmas tree. It's a good image to use for drawing and for making cards. It's very, what I call, user-friendly. It doesn't matter what you do to it. It can always make a nice, interesting looking card. So I suggest this might be something you'd like to do. If you want to make some cards, there's two approaches you can do. You can get the Strathmore cards. They have watercolor cards, and they also have mixed media cards. And the cards come already cut, and they even have the fold line in them, so they're ready to go, and they have envelopes. And you can use either side, the rough side or the smooth side, for drawing. For this particular set is the watercolor kind, but you can also get the mixed media, as I said, and do any kind of thing for that. The other thing that you'll find useful is, I like to do them with pen. You know I was going to say pen. But really, if you use a permanent pen, like the Micron pens or the Staedtlers, then you can do any kind of embellishment in color and not have to worry about your ink running. So I use a pen, pencil. I have my putty eraser because, of course, you want to not leave marks on your work. For today, I'm going to use watercolor pencils in order to color my cards. And so I need a little paintbrush, and you only need a little bit of water. Because when you're using watercolor pencils, all you need to do is activate the watercolor. You don't need to spread it out too much. You don't need a lot of water. And so we'll talk more about that later. Now, let's get started. The first step. Now, for this particular card, I have used, it is going to be a 5x7 card, so I needed a piece 10 by 7. Now, I don't tend to use the pre-bought material. I like to just use cardstock because I like to do cards all different sizes and all different shapes. And so if I use cardstock, I can cut them up and make them whatever shape I want, depending on the envelopes that I have. When you set up your drawing, the first thing you want to do is put a blank on this side. And that's so you can have a good sense of what your shape is that you're going to work with. And that's what I've done here. Next, you want to do your pencil outline. I'm not sure if you can see my pencil marks. If you can, maybe they're too dark. So just a light pencil line so that it's easy to erase and it's not going to score your paper. I tend to do just the main shape, and then from there I go right to ink. You can do more in pencil if you want. It's entirely up to you. You'll find that this particular shape of a Christmas tree is very forgiving, and yet it looks so neat when you're done. I like to do them with a little bit of a jog here, sometimes little goofy shapes, and sometimes I just do them with a regular kind of shape. Anything that you like to do is good. The big thing you're kind of doing, as well as making your cards, because of course the purpose is to improve your drawing skills, is to get that strong, confident line. So I try not to do too much in pencil first. I try and do stuff in freehand. So challenge yourself to do some freehand work and just draw what you see. And I also like to do a few little doodle things. And my favorite, of course, is my little snowballs. And I guess you could say this is my thing that I like to do, but I think it's kind of neat just to put some little snowballs here. And the power of a dot, you never know what a dot can do. It just can throw things along. Okay, so that's the first part, is getting your trees
Once
set
I've
up.
drawn my outline of my tree, or trees, depending on what I'm doing, I like to do some doodle patterns in them. And the doodle patterns can vary. In this particular one, I decided to do the same pattern for the whole tree. If you have several trees, you can do one pattern for each tree or several patterns on each tree.
Once you've got your trees drawn, whether you do one big tree or several little ones, then you can do some doodle things on them. And as you can see for this little one, each tree has its own little doodle print. And for some ideas, if you look online or maybe you have your own favorite things that you'd like to do, go ahead and do them. Now there is a few things I wanted to show you for putting, if you're going to use watercolor pencils. Watercolor pencils are really fun. I'm not a big coloring person with pencils, so for me, I kind of like them. I don't have to be so careful. I can just put my color down and then I can activate it. But I did want to show you a few things about the activation process if you happen to use colored pencils. Now, however dark you press with your pencils, what you're doing is putting pigment on your paper. So the darker you press, the more pigment you put down, the darker the color will be. And I don't worry if there's little bits of white in here, because I can take care of that when I do the activation. Now, in this case here, I'm not using watercolor paper. This is cardstock, which can work really well for this. However, there is something you need to keep in mind. You don't want a lot of water. So I get my brush wet, tap it, and then I can touch it to my watercolor. Now, once I touch it to the watercolor, it now has green paint on it. So I do have to be careful where I go and what I do in order to keep the green green. So you can see how, look at the difference between the two in terms of color. If you keep going back, what you're going to do is lift the pigment off your paper, so you don't want to do that. So this is a good practice for not fiddling when you're painting. Now, just to show you, if I put my brush here, you can see that there's green on there. And in this case, I don't mind if there's green, but if I was doing this particular one over here, I want to make sure I keep my green away from the red. So you can see here that any of those white spaces are now filled in. Now, if I decide that it's not dark enough, I will let that dry, and then I can go back over it again to darken it. And for this particular card, I decided I wanted to stick with the red and the green motif, and so those are the colors that I chose to use. But you could do anything for your colors and your patterns. Once you've colored your cards, then the thing to do is to add some embellishments. Now in this case, I just put some little glitter. Is always nice. You can get little glitter sheets like this from the dollar store. You can get stars, any kind of stickers if you want to put on there, some glitter. It's always fun. Maybe stick some ribbon on it. Anything, whatever thing you want to play with, it's always fun. Just putting this little glitter, you can see the difference between the trees. Just putting that makes a little difference. Adding a little bit of color, putting in a little bit of shading also adds interest to whatever you're doing. So any kind of embellishment is a good thing, and you will certainly be pleased. Now, when you finish your cards, you have the option of doing several different cards and then handing each one out, or you can take your cards to places like Staples and other photocopying places and just have them make copies of them on cardstock. And then you can hand them out to as many people as you want. So I hope you have fun making your own cards, and I hope that this inspires you to practice your drawing skills at the same time. And Merry Christmas! Wendy teaches outdoor sketching classes in the summer, and she teaches in her studio and online throughout the year. Wendy produces original work in pencil and in watercolor. She completes commission work, particularly pet portraits, and produces cards and prints from some of her work.